Today, we're talking about one of the most important skills you can learn in relationship, and that's understanding your partner.
Let's go. Maybe we can start with a question.
Yeah, do you have one? 'Cause
I do.
Oh my God, you also have great questions. All right, Kate, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Was there a point this week where you felt misunderstood by me?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want me to answer for you? Because I know when it is.
You know what I'm going to say? Yeah, you know what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I expressed that I was angry and I felt lonely, what I experienced after that was a lot of defensiveness and kind of explaining and you kind of taking that on and being like, hey, like I'm trying and stuff like that.
Yeah, taking it personal.
Yeah, I do think for a time you were pretty good at listening, like you did, but I
did.
do. Yeah, and I agree.
And then I lost my patience.
And then I think the intensity came up or like something, or you lost your patience. And
yeah. And how on par with what we're going to talk about, because that is something we're going to be talking about today, is like when you feel that fire.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask the same question or you want me to ask my question?
I don't know. Do you want to know when you were I felt misunderstood?
No, I don't care about any of that. All right. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I do care about that. So,
no.
Yeah, when in the last week did you feel misunderstood?
I felt misunderstood. Oh, that's a good one, actually. I thought you would ask me a different one, but no. I've definitely felt misunderstood. I think it's normal in relationships to feel misunderstood. I think,
sure.
We're two different humans living different lives. Probably, I can't think of something right now.
Nothing comes to mind.
No, nothing comes top of mind, but I'm sure something, like what I'm thinking of is like, I do remember this week having this feeling of, because I went back to school and it was a really busy schedule for me and, I'm exhausted. And I think some of the comments that you made yesterday during our argument made me feel like you don't truly understand the energy that is expended in a first week back at school.
Right. Yep.
Even though
that's fair.
Deep down, like I know because I've done it for like almost 15 years.
Yeah, like you know that I see it, but it's hard for me to understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So you were saying things yesterday and I was like, like, I want to be on your side here, but like I'm exhausted.
Yeah, a little burnt out.
Yeah, so even just the fact of you bringing up a conversation last night was like kind of weird timing for me. It was like, wow, okay, maybe you could have picked a time where I wasn't completely burnt out at 7:30 at night to bring something up that you wanted to get off your chest, which is okay. And I'm glad you brought it up. It's just maybe the timing could have been differently. So maybe I felt misunderstood because I was like, does he truly understand the level of energy that I have right now for this conversation? But at the same time, I could have been completely honest and been like, hey, Eric, I do not have the capacity to hear you right now or to be involved in this conversation. And I think that would have been kinder than me like sitting through it and trying to like hold space for you. Yeah.
So this is actually, there's a couple things that are happening right now that I think is really important to recognize. So first I want to say, so when I asked you the question and you just kind of stayed silent, right? And you kind of like were thinking. I think a lot of times in relationship, but also in our society today where silence is very uncomfortable, in those moments, it would be very easy for me to jump in and start giving ideas, right? And kind of invading your space.
Yeah.
So I hope, if you guys were listening, like you kind of notice that like it's important to have silence in your relationship in order to create space so you can understand your partner.
Or even silence in the middle of your podcast.
Yeah, well, exactly.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh my God, like say something, Kate. This is a podcast. People are tuning in to listen to you talk, not watch you think.
Yeah, but part of it is like
to silence.
Sure, like we could easily edit that out. But what I'm saying is it's actually an important skill that I think needs to be displayed.
Absolutely.
Because not enough people do it.
I agree.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like you and I have very different communication styles, right? And this is like most couples, right? Yeah. Most couples have different communication styles. For me, I speak very quickly. I speak with a certain intensity. I shoot from the hip. You're more of like you're very careful with your words. You want to make sure you say something correctly, things like that.
Yeah, it's calculated.
That's
it's
right.
Like, and not in a negative way.
No.
Not like calculated in a negative way. Just I like to make sure that the words I'm using are kind and well spoken, and that they truly convey the message that I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're like a laser, like on a sniper rifle, and I'm just like a Gatling gun, just like that's how I'm expressing
Hopefully
myself.
the message gets expressed.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And then I wonder why I'm feeling misunderstood when you're like, oh.
I've been shot.
Yeah, so that's one thing. The other thing I think that's important to understand is that, you go back to that conversation when you were saying, like, hey, like you express yourself and I just didn't have the capacity and you should have known it was a better time. Fair. I could definitely have asked, like, hey, is now a good time for me to express myself? And then you could have been honest and said, I'm kind of burnt out. We didn't get to that part. Instead, I just said, hey, I want to express something. You were like, what? And I just started.
I think you just started.
Yeah, sure. But I wonder what, and I acknowledge that. Like, I don't remember if I just started or not.
Yeah, I was just like, here's how I'm feeling, and this is why. And I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah. But what actually is curious to me is you said like that was exhausting. Like, what was exhausting for you about listening to me express myself?
I think it was being able to hold space and not take it personally, because my go-to, and I think because of a lot of my baggage and, childhood wounds and whatever, like I have a tendency of taking things very personally. I have a tendency of making everything about me. If you're like, oh, it's raining outside, I'll be like, oh, I shouldn't have planned this outing. Like, that was so stupid of me. I shouldn't have it's like,
yeah, or like if I'm like, I'm feeling disconnected.
Yeah, then I'm like, I'm not doing enough for the relationship. I should be doing more. No. Like, never is there a thought in my mind that's like, oh, okay, Eric's feeling disconnected.
Yeah.
It's like,
and like, I'm doing great.
I need to fix
Eric's
this.
feeling
I need to do
disconnected.
something
Right.
differently.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's like the weather's my fault when something comes up. Like, I take that on myself. So when I'm in conversation, it takes a lot of energy for me to be able to listen and hold space, not take it personally, to be like, this is Eric expressing himself. He's allowed to have these feelings. You're okay. You're a good wife. This doesn't mean anything about you. Like, all these things have to go through my mind as you're talking. And all you're doing is like expressing it to like, hey, like, I really miss you and I wish, we could spend more time together, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're okay. You're a good wife. Don't panic. Don't get angry. Like, there's a lot of emotional regulation that happens. So I think that's why it's so exhausting for me. Is listening to you it's there's a lot of like, and I understand that the more I do it, the less that these things have to happen, that this is like a practice, and the more I practice, the easier it will become to sit in these conversations and the more comfortable they'll be. But for the moment, it's still exhausting. So when I say that it's exhausting, it's not listening to you or having you express yourself. It's really the emotional regulation that goes on in my body.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for listeners to understand, and like we talk about this, and we've had like kind of arguments about this, right? Which is, I say arguments, but like one of the things that I often say is like, it's possible for me to have an experience of our relationship and it have nothing to do with you.
Yeah, or
right?
It is possible for both of us to have completely different experiences of this relationship.
About the same experience, like, but the
About
same
the
event,
same
even,
event.
right?
Yeah,
like we could both
exactly.
go out to dinner together and you could be like, that was great. I had a great time. And I can be like, that was horrible. I didn't have a good time. And maybe you're like, it was nice. We were just together and it was silent and quiet and it was nice not to have to talk about heavy. And I'm like, I hated the silence.
Yeah.
And it really depends on what you want.
And it is okay for us to have those two different experiences.
Yeah. And so I think if we get into it, really what we're talking about here is based on our evolved marriage model, which we're talking about the conscious communication part of it. The last episode, we talked about building trust. And now what we're talking about is understanding your partner. Next episode will be advocating for yourself, which are the 3 bars in conscious communication. Now, I say this is one of the most important skills. And really, I say like understanding your partner is the most important skill, but understanding people is a very important skill.
Yeah,
right?
And I think it's a skill people lack of a lot, because we are in such a society where we're very individualistic. We've been taught to, think of ourselves, work hard, play hard, like, work your way to the top. Don't worry about others. Like, so it's really hard when you have to put yourself back and really try to understand another human who might be completely different from you.
Yeah. And I think in relationships, right, in like a high stake situation where, you're in a long-term marriage or you're in a relationship where there is some dependency on each other, right?
Mhm.
It can really throw up your stress response,
Yeah.
which means that whenever your partner is expressing themselves, exactly like what you're saying, we tend to we put it through a lens of, why does this matter for me?
Mhm.
And I say that you might not even be conscious that you're doing that. It's just a very human thing, right?
Yes.
As humans, we take in information, we decide if there's a threat or not, if we have to do something about it, and then we adjust according to that.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes what happens is, when people are expressing themselves, or if your partner's expressing themselves, as much as you're trying to listen, you have to actively work at listening, because if you're just like there taking in
Mhm.
information, your brain is going, why is this important? What's happening? How is this relevant for me? What is going on? What's happening? And it's trying to
Yeah.
like stay a step ahead, right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to lead to you then not actually hearing and understanding your partner. It's going to lead to how that information impacts you, right?
Right. And when you're not trying to understand your partner, oftentimes what you're doing is you're trying to fix their problem. You're trying to
Defend
change the
yourself.
way they feel. You're trying to, yeah, make sure that you're not in the wrong, that you're defending yourself.
Hmm.
And this creates problems in marriage because what happens then is couples grow to resent each other, because somebody's trying to express himself, and instead of feeling understood, they're being told what to do, what not to do. They're being told that they're wrong for feeling a certain way. They're maybe being mocked for feeling a certain way. And this leads to total disconnection in marriage.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the challenges that come up in marriage, and we also talk about the big three, right? Like finances, sex, and kids. But I think in the end, like all those challenges come down to like one or both partners feeling misunderstood,
Yeah, it
right?
is the foundational problem in marriages, like if you're having trouble with your finances, maybe you're feeling misunderstood because you have a way that you want to save money or, spend money, and you're not feeling like your partner is understanding you. So really, like when you're having financial burdens and you're having financial arguments, what it comes down to is maybe there's a misunderstanding somewhere
Yeah,
in
like
there.
I think that finance is a great example. Like I'll speak for myself. Like I have a worry, some sort of fear, but I'll call it worry, that I will not be able to provide enough financially. And I'm not saying I'm the only one providing here. Like we
Yeah,
both
yeah,
provide,
I understand.
but like that somehow the amount of money that I bring into our household will not be enough to sustain a lifestyle that we all want. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's pressure and worry that I put on myself.
Hmm.
So in those moments, when I'm like, hey, like I'm worried about money, oftentimes the response that I get is like, okay, well, I'll stop spending here, or I'll stop spending here.
Or it could also be another response, which is, well, what do you mean? I make a lot of money. And then get into defense like you already, stop that before. Like as you were saying it, you're like, I'm not saying you're not making any money, because that would be a typical response, not from me, but from some people to be like, I make a lot of
Yeah.
money.
Well, what do you want me to
Like
do?
what do you
Like
like I'm
I make
making a
enough
lot.
money. Yeah.
Exactly. So those responses are me showing you that I'm not truly understanding what you're trying to say.
Hmm.
Usually what you're trying to say, there is an emotion behind that. There's a feeling, there's kind of a, there maybe is a worry, or there's, some past things that have happened that have led for you to have this belief about money. And unless I'm willing to truly listen to you and understand what you're saying, I'm going to go into defense mode. I'm going to go into fix it mode. And then as much as I think that that's going to help you, like, okay, Eric, I'm going to stop spending money. I'm going to, pick up a side job. I'm going to sell, a bunch of different things to make extra money. Like, don't worry, we'll have a lot of money. Okay, that's a nice short-term, solution, but in the end, you still feel misunderstood.
Yeah.
I'm not coming down to the root of the problem.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, right? Because then what happens long term, and this is where a lot of people find themselves in relationship, is that they have growing resentment from not feeling misunderstood. They get to a place where they're like, I would express myself, but if I'm just going to continue to be misunderstood anyways, there's no sense in expressing myself.
Mhm.
So then you slowly move into communication that becomes very transactional, very surface level, because one or both partners is like, what's the value in me expressing myself if I'm just going to leave feeling misunderstood and hurt?
Exactly.
And so then you have one or both partners who are just constantly just guarded in self-protection, never willing to be vulnerable, never willing to open up, which then long term impacts emotional connection, closeness, bonding, sexual connection, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is like what happens. These are kind of the results of getting it wrong, right? Of always being in defensiveness, of always trying to fix, of not creating space, trying to understand your partner emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really why we really want to help couples start to learn skills about understanding their partner.
Yeah, and the foundation of the problem with not understanding your partner is we don't really know how to understand.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know what it is to understand. So we'll take some time to define that. We'll take some time to decipher, well, what is understanding? Because I think there's often this misconception between understanding and agreement.
Yep. Yeah.
Oftentimes we think we're understanding because, my partner says, oh, I'm really having a hard time. Like this has happened to us lately. We're having a hard time with our son. He's kind of hitting the preteens. It's been harder. It's been a transition, this new version of our son that we're dealing
new energy
with.
In the home, for sure.
New energy for sure. And, we know that that's right where he needs to be. But right now it's difficult. And sometimes, one or the other will say, oof, that was like a really hard day with our son. And sometimes it is true for both of us. But sometimes I think for me, especially like when you say something about our son and you're like, oh my gosh, that was a really hard day with our son. Even though I don't think that it was a hard day with our son, I think that to understand Eric is that I need to agree with him. I need to be like, yeah, you're right. Oh my God, what a horrible day. You're right. He was a poop head. And then I'll convince myself and I'll find all these situations that make that true because I can. But that isn't taking time to understand Eric. That isn't taking time to understand, well, what does a hard day with our son mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like to you? And why was it a hard day?
Yeah, like tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So me just agreeing with Eric and being like, yeah, it was a hard day doesn't necessarily mean that I understand what Eric is.
Yeah, that's right. And I do think that oftentimes we confuse agreeing, sameness, because the other thing too is on the flip side of that, oftentimes there'll be a situation where we don't agree on the same thing. And then, and a lot of people get stuck here, which is like, well, it's hard for me to help her feel understood because I don't agree with her or I don't agree with him, but they are different things. Right. And I think this is really important for you to remember is like, as the viewer is, validating someone's experience, helping them feel seen, heard, and understood does not mean you're agreeing with them. And I think this is in like this really, individualistic society where there's so much in-out groups going on and we only want to be around people that agree with us all the time and don't want to be with other people who don't agree with us. Our tolerance for disagreement is incredibly low. And so what happens is we're constantly just trying to get people to agree with us. If they don't agree with us, we refuse to understand them because we're like, well, we don't agree with you. We don't agree with each other, so it's not going to work. And that's where a lot of people, I think, get stuck in marriage, right? Is how do you honor your difference and still understand each other? Because we have so many things that are different between us, right? There's things that you love to do. There's things that I do that you don't love. There's things that you do that I don't love, right?
Yeah.
That things that I do that pisses you off, but you understand where I'm coming from. You understand who I am as a human. You understand the mistakes I made, et cetera, et cetera. And that creates more empathy, right? Which is really part of the skills that we want to start moving towards. I always tell people in my practice I work with, oftentimes if you're miscommunicating, it's because there's a lack of empathy, which means you're not understanding the other person's emotional experience. You're just totally closed off to it, or you just don't have the skills to understand it. Or there's a lack of attunement, which means we're kind of both talking, but like one of us is like talking up here and one of us is talking here and we're just like missing each other.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really important to understand is that in order to understand your partner, you have to practice the skill of empathy and you have to be attuned with them. Right. And so maybe we should move on to like some specific skills that people can start practicing in order to help their partner feel more understood.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first skills that you can develop to help you understand your partner better is reflective listening. And what that means, and I think this is kind of the go-to for most people, how do I understand my, well, here, number one, everyone will say the same thing, reflective listening, meaning when my partner is talking, I'm saying back what they're saying, maybe in different ways, like not like I'm not a robot. I'm not going to repeat word per word, but to show them that I'm understanding what they're saying, I might do something like, well, what I'm understanding is this, and then kind of repeat what it is that I understood from what you said.
Yeah, and then checking in, right?
Checking in.
Is that true for you?
Yeah.
Right? And I think just that last line, is that true for you, or is that true, or is that on par with what you're saying? Like whatever language you have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love that of like, it's not being a robot and parroting back, right? So in that moment, it's like, if I'm saying, we could try it out here, but it's like, if I'm saying like, it's such a hard day with Francis. Yeah, it's just, it sucks to be around him today, right? Yeah. Your response to make me feel understood would be something like,
what I'm understanding is that you're maybe feeling a little disconnected from him, and maybe that you're feeling that something happened today that made you feel a little off. Do you want to tell me more about that?
Yeah. And then again, checking in, right, I think is really important here, the skill of saying, because it gives your partner then the opportunity to either agree with what you're saying, which means the conversation can move, or correct you, which means the conversation can move, right?
Yeah.
How many times would it happen where like, we'll do reflective listening and it's like, no, it's not that. It's not that. It's this, you know, it's like.
And sometimes, sorry to interrupt, but sometimes doing this reflective listening, and I think this happens especially to me, is sometimes you'll say something and then I realize like, oh, I thought that that's what I was thinking, but actually no, it's not that. For example, like, oh, it sounds like you're really disliking your job right now. It sounds like you're having a really hard time with the people you work with. And then like, as you're saying it back, it's like, yeah, I know that's kind of what I said, but that's not what it is. I think I'm just doing too much at work. I think I'm just like, I haven't set boundaries and I haven't set limits, and I need to do that, because it's not that I hate my job. It's not that I hate my coworkers. It's just I haven't learned to say no. And because of that, I'm hating my job right now. But I think it's just a boundaries thing. Yeah. And so this reflective listening sometimes even helps me understand myself better, because you'll say something and it's like, whoa, okay, no, that's kind of an extreme. Like, I don't hate my job and hate my coworkers, but it is this actually. And then I can think a little more, and it helps me reflect as I'm speaking.
Yeah, that's right. Understand yourself. It helps me understand you as you're kind of openly talking. And so that's really the first skill, is like reflective listening, right? You just say back what you understood. And again, you're not making stuff up. Like, try to keep it close, right? If they say, I'm really pissed off, the answer is not like, it sounds like you had a really hard day. It's like, no, that's not what they said. They said they're really pissed off.
And if you were to say, the Francis thing, if you were to say, I had a really hard day with my Francis, I feel like really disconnected or whatever, I don't feel like I want to hang out with him, or whatever you said. If I don't understand, it's okay for me. If I can't do reflective listening, if I'm like, I have no idea what this even means, I can ask him to clarify. I can say like, wow, Eric, that sounds like really heavy. Can you tell me more about that? Tell me, what are you feeling when it comes to this? Because I'm having trouble understanding, what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, that's right. And I really want to understand you.
Yeah. And so having that clarity conversation, making sure that you truly understand your partner, is so much closer than going into defense mode and being like, what do you mean? He's not being, he wasn't being a jerk. He was actually being really good today. And he did all these good things. Why are you
talking?
And
he's just trying.
What about, are you just noticing? Or even just dismissing what your partner's saying, like, well, Eric, like, he is a 10-year-old boy. Like, it's normal that he's going to have some days where he's a little off. Like, that maybe is true. But in the moment, it's very dismissive of his feelings. And we can eventually get to that place in a conversation. But what happens is, at first, Eric needs to feel validated. He needs to feel heard. He needs to feel that I can understand his pain and his suffering right now.
Yeah, and I think you're raising the right second skill, which is curiosity, right? When you're trying to understand more about what's going on and being curious. But I do want to say something that I think is really important for people to understand, is that when it comes to connecting, so when it comes to understanding your partner, when it comes to being in relationship and having closeness, there's no space for objective reality. Like, and what I mean by that is that like, facts don't matter.
Yeah.
Right. So in that moment, like, if I'm like, I had a really hard day with Francis, and you were like, Francis is 11 years old. It's like, that's not relevant to how I feel.
Yeah.
And so and so you're right. It's true. And I think especially for men, this is hard. Like, I hear a lot of men talk about what their wives' experiences is, and it's, oh, she's saying this, but it's just not true. Like, I didn't do that. But it's like, but you're missing the point.
Yeah.
Like, instead, just go to the emotion.
Yeah.
You sound really frustrating. We all know, like, memory is not great, right?
Yeah.
And so what I often encourage listeners, viewers, like, and a lot of the clients that I work with is stop trying to tether your partner's experience to like objective reality, because it doesn't matter. Like, because it's an emotional experience that you're trying to solve with rationality.
Yeah. And I remember I used to do that often in our conversations. I would often, create this scientific explanation around what you were feeling. Well, I did read in a book once that this, or, my friend, she has ADHD, and when she goes through that, like, this is kind of like how she's feeling. Do you think you have ADHD? And it's just like, how is that relevant? How is that helping? Because I'm, first off, not doing reflective listening. I'm not becoming curious to know, well, what is your experience truly like? And then the next skill that we'd like to suggest is
labeling emotions.
Yep. Sorry, my yeah, labeling emotions. So you're making sure that sounds like you're feeling this way. Sounds like you might be feeling a little bit frustrated or mad or sad, or and then being okay with him being like, no, I'm not mad. I'm really sad. And that happens often when I label your emotions.
Sure.
Sounds like you feel really mad about this. No, I don't feel really mad about this. I feel completely apathetic and completely sad about this. And I'm like, wow, that's completely different than mad.
Yeah.
Because I have trouble distinguishing between all of them, because to me, they all look the same.
But, well, every emotion that comes out of a man is typically anger. So total generalization. It's not true. But yeah, like, and I love labeling emotions. Honestly, I think it's like the softball, right? That like you can throw at any point. It's like typically it lands, but yeah, like sounds like you're feeling frustrated. And they just wait. And your partner might say, I am frustrated. Awesome.
And practicing that silence, the silence we talked about at the beginning. Sounds like you're feeling angry about this. That's it.
Yeah.
The silence.
And then they might be like, I am angry. Yeah, I am angry. And then they might open up, or they might say nothing, and that's okay, right? Just that you're witnessing their experience and you're labeling their emotion is good.
Yeah. And oftentimes when you do this, it sounds like you're really sad about this, because I repress my emotions so much, because I try to not feel them so much. When he names the emotion for me and then I tune into that, I'm like, yeah, I am sad. I'll usually break down. And so holding that space for silence is so important, because if you're talking and talking and talking, it doesn't give me time to feel that emotion through. And the longer you hold on to an emotion, the harder it is for you to feel it through. And then the more there is like these like physiological repercussions from you not actually releasing that emotion. So giving your partner that like few seconds of silence might help them feel through an emotion, and then it'll be done and over with. And, you can move past this and really, go on with your day feeling a lot better.
Yeah. And I think if you kind of expand on this, we have a tool we often suggest to listeners called the Experience Cube, but it's just a very simple way to express yourself to your partner and to work together to help understand each other, right? Which is, here's what I'm noticing. So like, essentially, here's what happened. Here's the story I tell myself about that. Here's some of the feelings that come up for me. And ideally, like, this is what I'd want in that situation. And it's just a great way to really like run through your entire experience to help your partner understand. Because, we're going to talk about this a little bit next week in advocating for yourself, but I understand that it is a two-way street, and working together makes it easier for us to understand each other. But sometimes your partner just doesn't have the skills to express themselves. So you really have to be working these skills of, reflective listening, of labeling. I think about that a lot. Like, you were not as in touch with your emotions as, I had been, because I'd done a lot of work in the beginning. And so oftentimes I was labeling, I was just getting like a no response. Well, you seem sad. I'm not sad.
I'm not
like, that would be it,
I'm not frustrated.
Yeah. And then, so then I would be like, okay, right? Because frustration, sadness, that was very threatening for you, right? And so then I'd be like, okay, are you frustrated? And then eventually you're like, I don't want to talk about this. And I'm like, all right. But over time, it wasn't like I'm just going to quit on it. It's like over time I kept going, and then I guess more. And I started to understand, like, based on Kate's expressions, on her tone, on how she's carrying herself, because we've been together and I've labeled it so much, that usually leans to some sort of anger, irritation, frustration, and that kind of part of the model, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but when Kate's carrying herself this way, it's more like sadness and melancholy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to really understand your partner, which then makes it like way easier to communicate, to create closeness, to create safety, to create bonding. Like it's just a win-win all around. And this is why I say it's the most important skill, because you essentially, conflict goes way down, right? Because you don't have to, like, you're not waiting for things. When I see you in a melancholic mood, I'm not just like, oh God, I can't, like, I'm going to avoid Kate the whole time till 3 weeks later you blow up. No, it's like I see it and I label it.
Mm-hmm.
And then so the emotion gets to be experienced. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
get repressed and bottled up,
Mm-hmm.
right? It creates closeness because we're both able to open up about our experience.
Mm-hmm.
We create the space where it's like, I say something and then you understand me. I feel understood. So I feel closer.
Yeah, and I think one of the kindest things that you do is often like, well, can I give you advice here, or are you just venting? Or would you like some advice here, or are you just venting? And sometimes I'm like, no, I'm just venting. I just want to get this off my chest and be mad about it. And then you're like, okay, be mad about it.
Mhm.
Like, and that in itself creates such an emotional safety in our relationship. It creates this like bond that we have that is unbreakable, because it's like, I know that no matter how I'm feeling, no matter what I have to say, Eric can hold space for me. When you do fix things, or when I try to open up and you're trying to give me solutions and you're trying to, fix my problem, which is such a caring thing to do. And I think people do it in a very caring way. They don't mean to piss off their partners, but it's so dismissive and it's so like, you have no idea. And especially for me, like as a teacher, like I know, like it's a world that nobody else understands on the outside. Like you really have to be in the trenches to understand. And I think it's like that for most jobs, if you're a doctor, nurse, lawyer, whatever, like it's hard to really understand what goes in a job, like starting your own business. Like nobody really understands unless they're doing it. And so when I'm complaining about work or saying something about work and you're like, well, what I would do is, I'm like, inside all I want to be like is like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea. So when you do that, it actually like creates this anger and resentment in me. I'm like, who do you think you are? Like you have no idea. And instead, when you're like, hey, do you just want like space to talk this out? And I'm like, yeah, that makes me feel so much better than you being like, I have advice. It's like, no, you have no advice. You're not the right person for advice. I will talk to my coworkers for advice. Right now, I just need to vent.
Well, yeah, and I want to say, like, the whole idea of like giving advice when somebody is venting and like annoyed or angry or irritated, but kind of like in an emotionally tense situation.
Mm-hmm.
Advice is completely useless. Like, and so it's really important for people to understand this, is like, if you're talking about your problem and you're really struggling and it's causing you a lot of stress, and I'm like, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that? It doesn't matter. Even if you're like, yeah, that's a good idea. Like you're not later on going to correlate that and then implement it, because you're receiving it when you're like in a stress response.
Exactly.
So your brain's not taking it in.
No.
And the analogy I always use is like, okay, like you're like driving a car, right? And imagine somebody who's like sitting with you and you're just like fine driving, and they're like, hey, I can tell you how to drive this better. I can tell you how to drive this better, right? You're like, I don't need it. Like, I don't need you to, I'm driving fine. So leave me alone.
Yeah.
So that's like the idea of people just giving unsolicited advice. Like, I don't need advice right now, because the thing you're trying to give me advice on is not broken.
Yeah.
So I'm good. But then what happens is, imagine you got in a car accident, and then after you're in a car accident, somebody walks up to you and you're like, hey, can I give you some driving advice? You're like, I just got in a car accident. Get away from me. Like, I need to call my insurance. I need to call police. I need to make sure I need to fix my broken arm.
Yeah.
Like, and the person's like, well, hey, let me tell you how, you probably should have took that left turn. It's useless. Like, I don't need it right now. So that's the thing about advice, is like, when you could use it, you're not really in a space where you're going to take it.
And you can actually receive it.
Yeah. And then when you actually need it, you can't actually implement it.
Yeah.
And so just, anyways, stop giving advice, people.
Yeah. So, but this is all just, the basis of understanding your partner is start there. Start by trying to understand your partner, trying to understand what they're going through, trying to understand what it is that they need in this moment, versus trying to fix, trying to give advice, trying to do everything. Because in the end, when your partner feels understood, like you said, there's more emotional safety. They're more attractive. Like you're more attracted to your partner when they're showing signs of understanding you than when they're trying to fix and create new things so that you don't have this problem. It is a much more attractive way to be in a relationship.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is like, it's also really important for you to understand, like, when you do this well, you actually, it takes less effort, like, and that's really important. Like, helping somebody feel as understood takes a lot less effort than trying to get somebody to do something different by giving them advice.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, because oftentimes, like, what I say in a lot of situations is like, you'll be having a hard time. I'll label your emotion. You'll kind of like let some of that emotion out. And then I'll just say, can I give you a hug? And you'll be like, yeah. And then
Yeah.
we'll hold each other for a bit. And that's it.
Yeah. And
Right?
oftentimes what you say when you do get to a point where you're like, what do you need from me? It's usually that I just need a hug. I just need to be held.
Yeah.
It's like there's no part of me at that point that's like, well, I would like your advice.
Yeah, I would like
based off all the
strategy.
textbooks that you no,
Right.
I don't need that. So, all that to say, understanding your partner creates a more secure connection, creates more communication. And really, when you're looking at the framework for an evolved marriage, you're looking at leading yourself. Once you're able to lead yourself, once you completely understand, what it is that you need, what it is that you want in your own life, in your relationship, then you're ready to communicate. And when you're feeling understood, communication becomes so much easier. When you feel that emotional safety with your partner because you're feeling understood, your partner is feeling understood, you're mutually feeling understood, you're at a much better place in your relationship. And it isn't until you have that conscious communication that you can move on to genuine connection, which is, the peak of the triangle where everything else has to be in line before you can get to this genuine connection. So feeling completely understood does bring you towards this genuine connection, which everyone wants in their relationship.
Yeah, I love that. So if you're listening to this, again, we're going to be doing one on advocating for yourself next week. We'd love it if you could just give us a follow, maybe give us a written review. We always love hearing from you. And if you're on YouTube, just subscribe because we put out podcast videos and I put out training videos every single week. So subscribe to our channel and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.